Help me reach 500 subscribers. I flirted shamelessly with my boss at the party, certain my husband didn't notice, because he was standing across the room, glass in hand, talking to someone else with that same calm expression he always wore. I remember thinking how predictable he was, how safe, how unaware. The music was loud, the lights were low, and for the first time in years I felt seen. My boss leaned closer than necessary, laughed too hard at my jokes, and rested his hand on my lower back like it belonged there. I didn't pull away. I wanted to feel wanted. I wanted to feel powerful. I wanted to feel like someone would choose me without hesitation. The party itself was nothing special. Just another corporate celebration, overpriced drinks, forced smiles, and people pretending they enjoyed each other's company. But something in me had already decided the night would be different. I had spent too long feeling invisible at home, too long being appreciated in quiet, practical ways. My husband was kind, dependable, consistent. He listened. He showed up. And somehow that had begun to feel like a weakness instead of a gift. I told myself I deserved excitement. I told myself harmless flirting wasn't betrayal. I told myself he would never even notice. When my boss complimented my dress, I pretended to be embarrassed. When he asked if I'd lost weight, I laughed and said I hadn't noticed. Every word was calculated, every smile deliberate. I could feel eyes on us, but not the ones I feared. I scanned the room more than once, checking on my husband, always reassured by the same thing. He wasn't looking. Or so I thought. He stood there, relaxed, nodding along to a conversation I couldn't hear, entirely unbothered. That calm gave me permission. Or at least that's what I convinced myself. At one point, my boss offered to get me another drink. I didn't need one, but I said yes anyway. It felt like crossing a line and realizing there was no alarm. No consequences. Just thrill. When he handed me the glass, our fingers brushed and he didn't pull away. Neither did I. I remember thinking how strange it was that something so small could feel so significant. How easy it was to step into a moment and pretend it meant nothing. What I didn't know was that my husband had already noticed everything. Not because he was watching obsessively, not because he was suspicious, but because he paid attention in ways I underestimated. He noticed the way my laugh changed higher and sharper. He noticed the way I leaned in, the way my body angled away from him and toward someone else. He noticed the way my boss's hand lingered too long, and the way I didn't stop it. He noticed and he said nothing. That silence should have scared me, but I was too busy enjoying myself. I danced with my coworkers, let my boss spin me once on the floor, laughed when people teased us. I felt bold, admired, alive. Somewhere in the back of my mind, a small voice reminded me I was married, but it was easy to ignore. I told myself I wasn't doing anything wrong enough to matter. I told myself lines only counted if you crossed them completely. Eventually the party began to thin out. People said their goodbyes, rides were called, coats were collected. My boss leaned in again and said we should talk more at work, maybe grab a drink sometime, just the two of us. I smiled and said maybe. That single word felt heavier than it should have, but I didn't take it back. I glanced around the room looking for my husband, expecting to see annoyance or jealousy or at least curiosity on his face. Instead, I found him exactly where he'd been most of the night, calm, composed, watching me now without any visible emotion. That was the moment something shifted. His eyes met mine and there was no anger there. No hurt. Just understanding. The kind that feels worse than accusation. He raised his glass slightly, not in a toast but in acknowledgement, like he had seen enough and filed it away. My stomach tightened. For the first time that night I felt exposed. I looked away first. We didn't leave together. He said he'd get a ride with a colleague and told me to go ahead. His voice was steady, polite, distant. In the car ride home, the adrenaline drained out of me, replaced by a growing unease. I replayed the night in fragments, trying to decide if I had imagined that look in his eyes. Trying to tell myself I was overthinking. By the time I reached our house, the lights were on, but the place felt strangely quiet. He was sitting at the kitchen table when I walked in, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, like he'd been waiting but not impatiently. I expected questions. Accusations. Something. Instead he asked if I had a good time. I said yes too quickly. He nodded once as if confirming something he already knew. Then he asked a simple question that caught me completely off guard. He asked if I felt respected tonight. I laughed nervously and asked what he meant. He didn't repeat the question. He didn't explain it either. He just stood up, picked up his phone from the table and told me he was going to bed. As he walked away, I realized he wasn't upset because he hadn't noticed. He was calm because he had. And whatever he saw had changed something I couldn't yet see, but I could feel it settling between us, heavy and irreversible.